Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. I wanted to do a update for today on the ongoing war between Russia and Ukraine. And again, we've received some reports, and I thought these reports are worth mentioning, that a large Russian amphibious landing ship, either a Rapocha or a alligator class landing ship, may have been hit by a what some believe is a ballistic missile fired by the Ukrainians, or a possible some sort of special operation by Ukrainian frogmen, underwater combat divers, possibly laying an explosive charge on said vessel. Now, I would say it's probably more likely, given who controls the areas around Berdansk and obviously Mariupol further to the east, and then obviously you have Crimea to the west of that locale. So Berdansk is farther this way, to the west of Mariupol, which obviously you can see on my map, and I thought we would have a fairly close look at the situation inside of Mariupol, and this map I think is a fairly good representation of what's happening. So again, there are reports that a large amphibious vessel, one of three that were supposedly docked at the port, one of which may have been severely damaged and quite possibly sunk by Ukrainian assets. Again, and we don't know what that exactly looked like in terms of ordnance and or personnel utilized. And again, we can't even confirm yet that is in fact the case. It could be the fact that the port facilities are burning, but they did not in fact hit the ship. We have seen a previous report in which a vessel was reported to have been hit off the coast of Odessa and in fact sunk. That report was proven false, and it did not occur. So again, we're monitoring this closely, and we're trying to ascertain exactly what has happened in terms of the vessel that may or may not have been hit. Again, from what we're seeing from video footage, it would appear something near the port was hit. Again, is that a ship, or was that the port facilities themselves? But again, we just don't know at this point. Also, I wanted to talk about the Russian general staff that have been taking casualties of late. We know roughly 5 Russian generals, one-star generals, that have been killed in action in the ongoing conflict. And I think on one hand, it is being portrayed as it's the incompetence of the Russian military, and I would say, while in some cases that could be a possibility, I would say that more likely than not, it's an indication that many of these Russian generals are choosing to lead from the front. They're getting very close to the line of contact with the Ukrainian forces, and they're attempting to lead their soldiers from the front lines. And again, that doesn't make them incompetent, but again, they being general staff officers, they may not have to do that. Now, maybe the expectation has been that some of these general staff officers would in fact lead from the front, but I'm certain that as they continue to take casualties, that choice may be revisited in terms of allowing those general staff officers to get that close to the line of contact. At the same time, what we're also seeing is that signals intelligence from Western nations, from the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, that are assisting the Ukrainian military in ongoing war efforts. So again, we do know that Western intelligence is being utilized to locate command and control assets of the Russian Federation. And once that information is then given to the Ukrainians then decide whether they have the assets to then attack that locale. And in some cases they are. Obviously, in one case we've seen some long distance sniper engagements when one general was killed, and we've seen other engagements that have occurred from long range artillery in conjunction with the use of drones. And then obviously we've seen direct drone attacks as well with the TB2 drone that have proven to be very effective in this conflict and continue to be fairly effective. But again, right now those generals are choosing to get up close to the front lines with their soldiers. And I'm not sure if that is looked at on the in terms of the individual Russian soldier basis as necessarily a bad thing in terms of a morale decreasing issue. It could have just the opposite effect. It could show that again that the general staff officers, the higher echelon of the Russian command, is willing to get up into the dirty parts of the conflict and sustain casualties, and that is at times could be admired by the frontline personnel. So again, it just depends on the context in which the casualties were suffered and who was killed, and again, I would imagine based on the recent uptick in casualties of these general staff officers that the Russian higher command is probably now indicating that these generals should not be operating that close to the front line or putting themselves in a situation where they could be could suffer casualties from the Ukrainians. But again, it's the nature of war. Obviously, we haven't seen that in other conflicts with the United States. As in the United States, you usually see more or less captains, your company command officers, and possibly much more rarely, brigade commanders. But more or less, it's your battalion colonels, your lieutenant colonels in the United States military that are much closer to the enemy than an American brigadier general or full bird colonel who commands a brigade. But again, that's how the Russian doctrine is right now. For whatever reason, those brigade commanders, which in some cases are one-star generals, and in some cases higher, are getting close to that line of contact and leading those soldiers from the front. Unfortunately for the Russians, they are taking some casualties and have taken some casualties, and also obviously those battalion commanders, majors, lieutenant colonels, obviously are very close to the front lines, and given the signals intelligence by the West in terms of locating some of those individuals and then transferring that information to the Ukrainians, again, is resulting in some of those battlefield casualties. The Ukrainians are absolutely seeing the same sort of casualties, but again, they don't report it. You just don't hear about it. The Ukrainians are only reporting Russian losses. They very, very rarely are reporting what their losses are. And again, that's partly because they don't want to release intelligence directly to the Russians that would indicate a success of a possible attack by Russian tactical aircraft or long-range ballistic or cruise missiles. But that's what's happening on the ground. And then obviously we have the map here of Mariupol. You can clearly see that parts of the heavy industrialized area in the port facilities, in the heavy built-up areas of Mariupol, indicated in the blue, are still under the control of the Ukrainian military and territorial defenses. Again, albeit it's much, much smaller. Obviously, the Russians have moved into a lot of these areas and taken control of significant parts of Mariupol. And again, as I talked about in a previous episode, that right now it looks like the Russians are simply attempting to wear down the Ukrainians, exhaust their supplies, and then at some point within the next week or two, possibly a little longer, we could see another all-out attack on those Ukrainian positions if in fact they don't surrender prior. But I wanted to do an update, talk about the port facility attack that just happened, talk about some of the issues with the casualties taken by the Russian general staff. I don't want to say general staff officers, just Russian general officers, meaning 1 star and possibly above, and obviously also some of those battalion staff officers as well that we know have also been taken as casualties. But again, that's what we have. We'll have again more later as we continue to cover the conflict. Have a good day, everybody.